Hey everyone, welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something absolutely fascinating. We're objectively unpacking some highly contrarian source material that totally flips the script on how we look at wealth, personal debt, and yeah, even the mechanics of the afterlife. It's this intensely structured framework that challenges the very foundation of individual success. So if you're the kind of person who loves turning abstract, thought-provoking concepts into clear takeaways, you are in exactly the right place. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's dive right into this core question. Did your parents really pay for your success? Or was it actually funded by the blood, sweat, and tears of the masses? Right out of the gate, this source material challenges that massive assumption we all make. You know, that our personal achievements, like getting a degree or landing a good job, are funded by our own hard work or family wealth? We usually think, hey, my parents worked so hard to pay my tuition, or I earned that scholarship all on my own. But this framework, it argues something completely different. No way, it says.
Which brings us to our first major paradigm shift, the true meaning of help.
This philosophy totally redefines what it means to receive financial resources. It literally strips away the whole idea of personal money. According to the speaker in our source text, the universe actually operates on what they call the law of energy transfer. Basically, economic resources move to individuals not as their own personal property, but as societal energy meant specifically for their intellectual growth. Think about it like this. Even if your parents pay for your college or you get a grant, that money didn't just magically appear from a vacuum. It's actually the energy of society moving exactly to where it's needed for funding your cultivation. You aren't just spending dollars, you're absorbing the energy of the society around you.
And this brilliantly illustrates the sharp contrast between the myth we all believe and the reality presented in the text. On one side, you have the illusion of individual wealth. On the other, the reality, the literal blood and sweat of the masses. The text makes this intense argument that every single cent, whether it's spare change dropped into a charity bucket, church offerings, or a massive corporate scholarship, is the collected effort of the people. It's not your money. It's not the university's money. It is the lifeblood of the masses pooling together.
Let's walk through the logical flow of how this actually works. Step 1, the working masses generate energy through their everyday labor. Step 2, this energy flows through the economy, temporarily pooling up in the hands of parents, religious groups, or educational institutions. And Step 3, that energy is funneled directly into you to fund your intellectual growth. So what's the big takeaway here? Well, absorbing this societal energy is the strict prerequisite for anyone to gain higher knowledge. You literally cannot become an intellectual without consuming the energy of the people. It's like fuel.
This naturally leads us to our second big shift. Who do we actually repay?
Because if absolutely everything we consume to build our minds is actually societal energy, how in the world do we pay off that massive debt? The crucial point is captured perfectly in this quote from the text. You don't repay the teacher, you repay society. This completely shatters our normal transactional mindset. The framework explains that if someone mentors you, or your parents raise you, paying back those specific individuals is fundamentally incorrect. Why? Because they were just conduits for society's energy. If a teacher gives you knowledge, they had to absorb that energy from society first. Returning it just to them creates this closed loop that doesn't actually help anyone else.
Instead, the speaker gives a crystal clear instruction. Intellectuals have to focus entirely on benefiting humanity, not paying back specific people. Once you absorb all that societal energy and become educated, your sole focus has to be broadly benefiting the world. In fact, the text explicitly says you shouldn't feel guilty toward individual mentors or even your parents. Your debt is to the society that funded you in the first place, and you repay it by becoming someone who elevates all of humanity.
All right, let's move into our third section, the afterlife and erasing sin.
So what does this all mean if you just take this energy, get your fancy education, and then do absolutely nothing for society? Well, the source outlines some intensely severe spiritual consequences. Just follow this timeline with me. In the present, if you aren't fulfilling your duty, you're going to experience feelings of deep frustration, feeling stuck, or even physical sickness. But the speaker claims that this earthly suffering, that's merely a tiny fraction of the pain waiting for you. Upon death, if you haven't done your duty, you become trapped as a wandering spirit. And for the next 1,000 years, or until your next incarnation, you just suffer in that exact unfulfilled, painful state. The stakes, according to this framework, are literally cosmic.
Which of course begs a massive rhetorical question. If the consequences in the afterlife are really this severe, why are we even given this 100-year human existence in the first place? Like, why go through this perilous journey where you risk 1,000 years of suffering? The text delivers a very absolute answer. We are born solely to erase our sin.
The speaker posits that the singular reason we inhabit these physical bodies on Earth is to act as an engine to eradicate the spiritual weight, or karmic debt, that we carry. Basically, the human body is just a tool for this exact purpose.
But how do we actually do that? The source goes out of its way to systematically debunk a bunch of societal myths here. Look at the first column. What does not erase sin? Making loads of money, hoarding knowledge, hitting the gym for physical beauty, and, this is a big one, blind religious faith. The text claims none of these lighten your spiritual load. 0. On the second column, what does erase sin? Only righteous actions, specifically actions that directly benefit others. That is the one and only mechanism for erasing your karmic debt.
This leads us perfectly into our final section, a new definition of religion. Now, what's really interesting about this next part is how the source completely reconstructs salvation. Because if blind faith doesn't erase sin, we need a whole new definition of how this works. The source material actually strips away the necessity of believing in deities altogether. Traditional religion usually focuses on blind faith to enter heaven, right? Praying to a higher power to save you. But true religion, according to this text, is simply an educational gathering. The word for religion in this context literally just means a place to learn the great law. It doesn't matter who or what you pray to. If you aren't learning how to act righteously, you just aren't progressing.
So if action is the key, how is it measured? Well, the speaker outlines this fascinating progression of spiritual weight. It scales up based on the impact of your actions. You can burn your life's energy to benefit individuals, sure. You can scale that up even more to benefit your broader society. Or, at the absolute highest level, you can benefit all of humanity. The core idea is that burning your energy for others across these varying scales is the only way to make your soul light enough to ascend.
Let's move to this chart and see how this builds, because it's a direct correlation. Helping individuals lifts a certain amount of spiritual weight. Let's just call it 1 bar. Expanding your efforts to help your society, that doubles your impact. But dedicating your intellectual power, that same power funded by the blood and sweat of the masses, to help all of humanity, that lifts the most spiritual weight by far. The broader the impact an intellectual has, the more sin is wiped clean from their soul. To summarize this whole profound shift, heaven is not accessed by faith, but by burning your energy for the benefit of others. Your ticket out of that wandering, suffering afterlife isn't a belief system. It's the active, physical expenditure of your life force. You literally have to return the energy society invested in you back into the world. Ultimately, the entire framework distills down to this one powerful phrase: contributing to human co-prosperity. The speaker essentially asserts that if you don't do work that contributes to the shared prosperity of humanity, you can pretty much abandon any hope of entering heaven. It's intense, right? And it leaves us with an incredibly provocative thought to end on today. If every book you've ever read, every meal you've ever eaten, and every class you've ever taken was actually funded by the collected energy of the world, are you doing enough right now to contribute to human co-prosperity? Thanks for exploring this explainer with me today, and we'll see you next time.